طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Inshallah you're all keeping well and you're keeping safe in these difficult times. And I'd also like to welcome you all to attending this second and third part of From Research to Authorship, which today inshallah will be discussing the process of authorship and publications. The second part is a minor, however very crucial component of today's presentation, which inshallah will be discussed at a later stage in its course. By the end, inshallah, you will be able to understand the values of becoming an author. Also, you will understand the stages which a scientific paper undergoes from its submission to its publication. Thirdly, you will also know the responsibilities which come with becoming the author of a scientific paper. And finally, by the end of this session, inshallah, you will know the criteria for becoming the author or co-author of a scientific paper. For those who may have missed the first part, or those for whom this is the first part that they observe, I'd just like to introduce myself briefly. My name is Osman Al-Mahim. I graduated from the Faculty of Medicine in Ibn Sina University in Khartoum, Sudan in October 2019 with first-class honors. And during this time, alhamdulillah, I've also managed to claim multiple prizes, namely the Community Medicine Prize in 2018, which was followed by a term served in Medicine Sudan as local public health officer for the term 2018-2019. The first question which I believe many would ask themselves regarding the process of becoming the author of a scientific paper is the question of why. Why become the author or co-author of a scientific paper? There are a number of reasons for which such a prospect may be sought after, and they are as follows. The first of these reasons is the fact that a publication can be used to compete for either an academic or a clinical training post in multiple medical councils across the globe. A few examples are the General Medical Council in the UK, the Irish Medical Council in Ireland, in Canada, in USA, as well as multiple councils in the Middle East, such as Qatar and the UAE. Second of which is for the purpose of academic promotions. As a teaching assistant wishes to promote himself to the level of senior lecturer, associate professor, followed by assistant professor, and finally to the level of professor, a compulsory part of this journey is the submission of a minimum of papers before each promotion. So in order to promote yourself in any academic degree, research is an absolute must. Thirdly, publications can be used to compete for higher academic degrees. For example, a Master of Science, such as anatomy or physiology, or any other medically related subject or non-medically related. Secondly, it can also be used to compete for places in Master of Public Health degrees, as well as MD, Doctor of Medicine, and Philosophy Doctorate degrees, PhDs. With respect to the Master of Science and Master of Public Health, publications are generally favored in the process of application. However, regarding the medical doctorate, the MD, as well as the philosophy doctorate, the PhD, publications can both be favored during the application process, although in some cases they may be a requirement in order to be awarded these degrees, in order to be awarded the MD or the philosophy doctorate, the PhD. Finally, one may wish to become an author for the purpose of applying to scholarships, as also scientific articles and papers are favored among many scholarship agencies, such as the Chevening and Clarendon scholarship agencies in the United Kingdom, as well as multiple scholarship agencies in the United States, in Europe, as well as the Far East. However, before we embark on the process of authorship, there are a number of criteria which one must fulfill in order to be given the credit of becoming an author or co-author of a scientific paper, and they are as follows. Before we embark on them, they've been defined by the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors, or for short, ICMJE. The first of these criteria is that a substantial contribution must be made to either the conception or design of the work, or the acquisition of data for the work, or its analysis, or the interpretation of the data for the work. In addition to the second criterion, which is the act of drafting the work or revising it critically for important intellectual content. In each draft, every author must have their own inputs in every draft before submitting to the editors of the prospective journal in which you intend to publish your paper. Thirdly, the author must be in agreement with all the co-authors about the final version of the prospective paper, which shall be published in the prospective journal. And finally, and most importantly, authorship also entails the agreement to be accountable for all aspects of the work in ensuring that questions related to the accuracy or integrity of any part of the work are appropriately investigated and resolved. So in the event that the editors may ask you questions regarding the validity or the originality or the accuracy of the work, it is the responsibility of the author as well as the co-authors equally to be able to answer any questions which they may be asked by the editors or any higher agencies. Another point which we need to distinguish is the difference between authorship and acknowledgement. Who deserves authorship versus who deserves acknowledgement? We may know from the previous slide that the authorship is awarded to the authors in the event that they fulfill all the 4 criteria for authorship as set by the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors, the ICMJE. However, acknowledgement is given to contributors to the paper whose actions do not fulfill all 4 authorship criteria. However, they may have played a role in the facilitation of the work, such as general supervision, administrative support, or acquisition of funding. Other situations may be the facilitation of data collection by spreading the scope of the questionnaire or study tool, which is used to acquire the data from the participants. At the end of each manuscript, you may notice a section for the author's contributions, in which every author must specify his or her own contributions, as well as those who are worthy of acknowledgement. However, a crucial part which we must be aware of is the act of plagiarism. There are a few types of plagiarism which inshallah will be discussed, and they are as follows. The first of which is direct plagiarism, which is essentially the act of copying and pasting or word-for-word transcription between scientific papers. The second type, which we'll be discussing, is self-plagiarism, which is very common, unfortunately, among students from various institutions, whether medical or non-medical institutions, and it refers to the act of submitting one's own previous work or a mixture of various parts of their previous works, if they're plural, without the permission from relative parties. In this case, if I were to write a paper, and I've written papers before, the act of self-plagiarism is essentially the use of information from my own previous papers in the paper which I intend to write. The third of which is mosaic plagiarism, which entails the use of phrases, usually one phrase, without the use of quotation marks. So it can be clear, direct plagiarism and mosaic plagiarism have one crucial difference in that mosaic plagiarism involves the use of one phrase without the use of quotation marks. Whereas if it's multiple, it may be considered as an act of direct plagiarism. Finally, there's the act of accidental plagiarism, which also a number of students tend to tend to fall into, whether intentional or not. It's the act of neglecting, the act of referencing and citations. Every piece of information which is acquired from various sources and added to your paper must be cited and included in the list of references at the end of the manuscript. In the event that this is neglected, this is known as accidental plagiarism. So now we'll embark, inshallah, onto the stages which a scientific paper undergoes between the submission of the first draft to the publication and indexing of the scientific paper. First and foremost, there's the scientific paper's first draft, which is submitted to the journal, which is sought for publication, and written according to the guidelines for authors, which is given by the journal itself. And this entails many details, such as the means of subsectioning, font, word count, etc. The second stage entails the approval for the peer review, and this is the most important stage, as the paper itself will undergo checks for plagiarism and data manipulation as well. However, in order to, if you wish to avoid this, there are many softwares which you can use in order to check to check the paper for any acts of plagiarism, whether intentional or not, before drafting the paper. Now these could include one bundle in Grammarly, which is free for all, and also a second software which tends to be used by academic professionals is that of Authenticate. The third stage is the peer review, and this is seen by many authors as the most difficult stage, as it entails the review and feedback by multiple authors, and also sending you back their feedback. No two authors have the same mind, and as such, it is almost definite that you will receive feedback regarding the paper during the peer review. This could entail minor comments, such as grammatical errors or various types of presentation of the data in the results section, or it may also entail major comments, such as a different model of analysis or missing sections, if any, in the text. This is followed by the act of galley proofing, during which the paper will be sent to your email address, or through any formal means of communication, in the exact same conformation as the paper, the same aesthetics, and at this stage, the only comments which can be made by the author are the act of fixing any minor grammatical errors. After which, the paper becomes accepted. Congratulations, and this is followed by indexing in various portals, and given a particular ID in order to identify the paper. Now, these platforms can include PubMed, the National Library of Medicine, which is considered by many these days to be the new PubMed, or ResearchGate, and others. Do please excuse the minor text error. Then there's the question of which medical journal should I choose in order to publish my paper. There are a number of factors which influence this decision, as we'll see now. The first of which is the scope of the paper in which you intend to publish the article. The medical journal which covers the scope of the research problem addressed in the prospective paper. What we mean by this point is that when choosing a medical journal, you need to be sure that the scope of this medical journal covers the research problem which you studied in the scientific paper which you intend to publish. The second of which may be indexing. You may prefer a journal which is indexed in PubMed the National Library of Medicine, ResearchGate, and a number of other research portals. And finally, there's the impact factor, and this is what makes a difference. Basically, the higher the impact factor, the more likely your research is to be acted upon in the near future. And in this case, you always start from above. So rather than starting from minimal impact, you begin from maximum impact. So yeah, you always search for the best paper first. And in this case, yani, it's not an abnormal thing if your paper gets rejected. It just means that something may need to be readjusted in order to improve the quality of the paper or to improve its outcome. So in brief, rejections are normal in this field. So it's nothing to be upset about. It just means that the outcome needs to be improved by one means or another. So always start from above, as a lot of impact factors are sought by medical councils in the act of applying for clinical training posts. To conclude, I'd just like to reiterate a quote which we used in the first part by Ellen Deutsch, and that is, after all, the ultimate goal of research is not objectivity, but truth. If you have any questions and answers, please don't hesitate to reach me either in the comment section or any other platform. And once again, I thank you very much for attending, and I hope that you all become motivated by this journey. And also, I wish that you and your family stay safe in these difficult times, and take care. Thank you very much for attending.